Welcome to Baseball Biz on Deck. I am Mark Harmon, and with me, of course, is Mr. Matt Germain. How's it going today, buddy?
Doing great, Mark. How about you?
I'm having the time of my life, my friend. Is that your line? Did I steal that from you?
Living
No.
the dream. Living the dream.
Oh, this clown show called MLB, I absolutely love it. I mean, there's total insanity. You never know what's going to happen. You see great players do not so well, and you see other guys rise up. So it has been an exciting time. But before we get into the fun, I do want to talk about something a little bit more seriously. Here we are. It is Wednesday, September 11th, and you can't be in any hemisphere without knowing what that means as far as a great tragedy that took place and seeing a great response from a lot of firefighters and others to take care of people in New York and actually everywhere. The skies fell silent for a while. And Matt, I want to thank you because I know you're involved as a first responder and rescuer up north. And the other thing I was going to say too is I've had the good fortune of having a few firefighters on the show. Veronica Alvarez, who managed the USA Women's National Baseball team this year, and also Tamara Holmes, who was on the Silver Bullets and also on the USA Women's National Baseball team. And then there's another lady who have not had on here, Val Perez, also a firefighter, who I think previously had been with USA Women's National Baseball team. You see people who find different ways to give. And our good friends to the north here did a great service that I didn't realize until a few years back, Matt. And that was when I was visiting, Gander up in Newfoundland.
Yep. And
discovered that when this terrible tragedy occurred and all these people, many planes stranded in the air coming from Europe back to the continent here, and they were being diverted. And it was up in Newfoundland, which is probably about, as a crow flies, it's probably about 1,200 miles from New York. Gander took these people from several planes and basically put them up for a while.
They did.
I was so glad to be introduced to that when I was up there about 8 years ago or so, to the whole idea of what those, the great people of Gander, Newfoundland did. And I was like, my gosh, we need to thank them a little bit more often. And certainly I want to do that today as well.
Absolutely. They more than doubled the population of their town over that time frame. And from what I gather, because I have a lot of friends that are over there, and I work in search and rescue circles, so that's primarily why Gander exists as a base, is both to coordinate the Canadian Rangers and also train the search and rescue and base them out of there. And so they still, to this day, from what I gather, have relationships with people that they kept safe for a while, and built relationships with, and apparently they go back and forth. A lot of them, it was with people from Mexico, from the United States, from southern parts, western parts, all over the place, and some of them in Europe as well. So it's great to see people come together in events like this, and it's pretty much the entire eastern seaboard of Canada took part in it to different degrees depending on which area you're in. But I still remember that day because I was at the Warfare Center in Halifax when it happened, and my wife called me and she said, the U.S. is under attack. The U.S. is under attack on the phone. I was like, what is she talking about? So I ran across, because we weren't allowed any TVs in the Warfare Center at all. Like, you have no connection. There's top secret areas and all that stuff. So ran across the base to the area where I knew there was televisions, and I got there in time to see the second plane hit. And it was just a room full of people that were just in shock and awe about what was happening, trying to make sense of it all. And a few months later, I was on a warship on my way to the Gulf of Oman, and sailed there for 7.5 months, patrolling the Gulf of Oman, heading the international portion of that. So it impacted all of NATO, not just the United States on that day. And I can speak to that personally.
Thanks for sharing that part, Matt. Thanks for being part of a network of folks from Canada who really did a lot to make sure those those people who were stranded were taken care of. And you say, well, the good side, there's no good side, but it is good to hear there from that fallout there was actually people who had built friendships, across countries, people who kept in touch, and good people stand up to help other people, difficult times. And that was really good to hear. I think it was called Operation Yellow Ribbon. I'm not sure. Wow.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's get to some of the more mundane stuff in life. But I did want to say thank you to you and to those ladies and all the first responders and law enforcement folks. So thank you for all y'all do. Okay. Let's put my clown nose back on here with baseball. And man, Matt, it's getting grind time, brother. That's is there any reason to continue to look at the wild card standings?
No. There's no reason to look at the wild card thing. The things to look at right now is who they're going to keep for next year and why. So there's an evaluation going on with all these players, and they basically say, okay, what do you have to offer? What is your ceiling? What can we do with your skill set? And there's some of them that are shining in that moment, like Jonny DeLuca is a good example.
Yeah.
He's been handed a lot of responsibility, and he's outmuscling Christopher Morel and Dylan Carlson so far in making his case for next year. Some others are struggling a little bit more. I would say we expected more out of Junior Caminero. He's had flashes, and he's been about MLB average overall. But as a phenom, you were kind of expecting a little bit more. Now, he's still very early in his call up. So he definitely has time here in the next 3 weeks to say, hey, this is what, I'm going to bring to the table next year. And that's fine to look at it that way. It is a little bit sad because you're seeing the pitching. It was there to kind of go on a run if they could get some scoring.
Right. Last night, watching the game and just seeing things devolve completely. I mean, I turn on the TV, it's 4-4. I walk out of the room and it's 9-4. It seems like it's good gravy. What did I miss? I can't leave the room anymore when the TV's on. That's obviously the solution to this, but so
you got the power, Mark. You got the power.
I take full responsibility, brother. It's all on my back. So there we go. So send your hate mail here, but it's been interesting. You brought up Jonny DeLuca. It's like I was thinking the same thing. I was looking at some of the numbers. Let's see. DeLuca is batting. Let's see. It says here 435, 10 for 23 over a 6-game on base streak. And man, he is just kicking it, man. Let's see, 2 doubles, see 1 triple, 3 home runs, and 7 RBIs in his last 16 games. He ranks among AL leaders over that span since August 24th in average third hits. But I mean, this is the kind of guy that you hear that walk-up music, go, go, Johnny, go. He's living up to it, man.
Well, the intriguing part is, Mark, and I said this when they traded away Randy Arozarena, is that we already knew he was going to improve the defense. So when you're looking at the outs above average or what Baseball Savant rates for right fielders, he ranks second in all of Major League Baseball. So if you add up what you just stated in terms of the offensive potential, and he were able to do even, 20% below that over the course of a full season, you're talking about a heck of an outfielder to have for the Rays next year. Whether or not that's achievable, remains to be seen. But why wouldn't you take that shot when he's definitely affordable next year?
Man, oh man! I mean, I'm really excited about him. So yes, there's I felt like a lot of people are on the chopping block for next year. We talked in the past about Yandy's salary. We've talked about that in the past and saying, well, will we keep him for that? I don't know, but the others as well. Randy was gone. I was a little surprised, but as much money as they put into Randy land. But you see Siri, you see flashes of what he can do out there in the outfield, and sometimes at bat, but then there's other times where it just seems like it's just not happening for him. And I don't know. I mean, we've got young guys coming up. I mean, today? Just looking at who is it? You brought him up 100 times before. Chandler Simpson, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about Chandler. What's going on?
Chandler Simpson's just a picture of consistency, and he's going to be a major league player. He's going to be a top of the lineup hitter, and he's going to drive pitchers nuts and catchers nuts. He's going to be essentially, the kind of player that's a little bit like Kenny Lofton, where he just steals the show whenever he's on the bases. You can pretty much write off the fact that he's going to run. The question is just when. And most times it's early in the count because he knows he can beat you. He's already stolen 100 bases this year.
Wow.
Whether or not he steals anymore once they get to the playoffs as well, and they're still going through their season in Double A, that remains to be seen. But it's just quite a feat to have him there and doing even better in Double A than he did in A plus. He's got a shining personality. Players love him. He works his tail off every game. He shows up. He doesn't take a night off, which you love to see. So to me, that's a consistent guy that you want, and his energy is just electric. So I think the Rays lineup is going to change quite a bit. I mean, we already know they've adopted speed as one of the tools they can afford and they can concentrate on to gain an edge. And we're seeing it with Jose Caballero, who is leading the American League in steals. And he's one of those players that's also shown like Jonny DeLuca and made a case for himself for next year. Not to the same degree, but his defensive play has been stellar. And some of the plays that he's making and some of the hitting that he's done since I would say more like September for him. He's kind of amped things up a little bit more consistently. Whether or not he has another level, I don't know. He's about 28 now. He'll be 29 next year. So, you can bet on him being at the very least a utility player. The question it brings is whether or not Taylor Walls sticks around if that happens. But back to Chandler Simpson, he's part of a group of Double A players that are going to, I imagine, begin, probably two or three of them in Triple A next year and really push the envelope for the guys that the Rays do decide to bank on.
Let's see, that Double A, that's Montgomery Biscuits.
Yep.
And check it here. It's got their season thus far. There's not much left, by the way. They make 7 games. They've got 77 wins and 54 losses.
Yep.
Now, that win, I'd like to have that win-loss ratio, man. I think and let's see, the Hot Rods are 75 and 54. And I don't know Durham, but I think they're a little bit above 500, if I remember correctly.
Right.
So
But the thing with
go ahead.
the thing with Durham is that they had so many players drawn up to the Rays over the year. It was a chaos, and I don't think we can evaluate their season as a whole.
Yeah, I always hated that, when it was in Louisville and I'd see our team, and just as soon as you seem to be breaking and you're doing wonderful, oh, that guy's no longer there. Come on, guys. We had a chance. Yeah, and we said we brought so many folks up that it is kind of diluting the ability of what you're able to field. Today they were, let's see, like I said, I saw a bit of the Montgomery Biscuits, and then what was it, the Durham Bulls today?
The Durham Bulls they won 5-0.
Yeah, man, that was something to watch. And I think they got all 5 runs in one inning. I mean, it seems like that seems to be a trend. There's more and more times I see a team putting up a bunch of runs in one inning. I just don't know if it's the pitcher failing or if the juices just start rolling all the time. It's been interesting to watch.
Yep. The managers are stubborn. They stick with the guy a little bit too long a lot of times.
Well, let me ask you, because this is something I question. I mean, I love the Rays. I love Kevin Cash. I'm sure every time that there's a Rays loss, somebody criticizes the heck out of Kevin. They're going to go over, get the microscope out, buddy. But this year overall, there's been injuries. There's been slowly maybe some pitchers coming back. And I felt like Kevin the last, few weeks has been trying everything, man. It's time to throw a spaghetti at the wall and with his lineup and figure out what's going to happen. So I give you credit for trying some new things, but I guess one more thing I'll say. When I was looking across AL East and early this morning, over the last 10 games, none of the AL teams, Yankees, Orioles, Boston Red Sox, Rays, none of them. I forgot Blue Jays. None of these teams have won more than 5 of their last 10 games. I don't know.
Yeah, I think with Kevin Cash, like I said, I try to take the broader view, not the per game view. And I just find that, yes, he was dealt a terrible hand in that all of his left-handed hitters got hurt when the season started. And that just put a big wrench in the first 2 months of the season. What I hate about how he managed from that point is that he didn't instill any faith or confidence in the players he was handed from the front office to replace those guys. That's where I think his failure is this year. And it would have garnered, in my opinion, at least a handful of wins where they would have been in the picture for the wild card. But because he lacked that faith to push the envelope and really force guys to um, put themselves out there and perform because they are the best option against a right-handed pitcher, or they are the best option again, and just go with the role instead of looking at the player and saying, well, that guy has more experience, so I've got to use him here. No, that's not how it works. That's not how you've won all these years. How you've won all these years is the fact that you've actually put guys in a chance, in a position to perform based on what their skill set is. So the Austin Shenton thing really torqued me, and it still does.
Right.
He's still on the bench today. Like he's still, you're facing right-handed pitching and he's on the bench. And I just I I can't do it anymore. I can't, um
I'm
it's such a handicap when you're using so little of your roster.
no, I was waiting for you to say the name Austin Shenton because I've been when you first brought him up, I guess over a month or so ago, I've been closely watching, saying, okay, well, he is on the 20-man roster.
Mhm.
Oh, I hadn't seen him. Okay, Cash is burying him on the bench because he's not coming up. And
Gave him
he,
two at bats. One of them was a double.
jeez,
You
jeez,
know,
and crackers.
uh,
Well,
he still has one of the best OPSs right now for the Rays against right-handed pitching. He's top three. And he still won't use him. I don't know
uh,
what he did. He must have stepped on his toes in the dugout or something. There had to be something because he crushes right-handed pitching. If you want to sit him against lefties, by all means, do it. And if you have a better option, if you happen to have another lefty like Brandon Lau, yada yada yada, and you want to use them at first base, sure, okay. But don't go and sit there and tell me you don't have the ability to field a team where you can score runs against right-handed pitching when you're throwing out there Chris Morel, who's striking out at a ridiculous rate against, right-handed pitching, and then your Austin Shenton's on the bench.
yeah.
Austin Shenton is a way better hitter than Christopher Morel. I'm sorry, he just is. And so why are they pushing the envelope? Because Morel has a name and was with the Cubs for a while? Is that the focus? I don't understand.
I can't imagine. Sometimes I think like if a family member buys you a gift, you feel like you have to use it, or maybe it's one of those gifts that you say, "Oh my gosh, why did I get that?" But I feel like that maybe this
That's
play
a great explanation, Mark. I love it.
so maybe
Oh,
that's how it is with Morel. They think, here's the gift, and you got to use it.
I like it. You
Yeah.
just cheered me up for tonight.
Oh, good
Uh,
brother. Good. Yeah, it's a game. We all know that. We know there's front office decisions. We know there's decisions being made in the dugout by Cash and company. And then there's just what goes on in a player's life. They can
mhm.
be hot and then they can be cold. And sometimes they can just be, moody.
It happens. But like I
Yeah.
said, I think once Kevin Cash reflects on the season, he may identify that as one of the weaknesses of his managing over the course of this season, is that he really didn't amplify his lineup potential by putting guys in the best guys for the situation. Another thing was like for a while, and I think we spoke about this when we were talking. He wasn't using guys that were best against the fastball, for instance, at the top of the lineup when they were facing a pitcher that's going to rely on the fastball like 80% of the time. So why is that? Like there was a bunch of instances and things like that where it just wasn't it just took a lot of time for him to get used to the lineup he was forced to use for a bit. And then, like I said, I think there's a good handful of games they could have pulled off over that time. And that's the frustrating part. They are close. They are a decent team, despite all of the losses, all of the trades. They they showed a lot of tenacity and an ability to beat some pretty darn good teams over the last month and a half.
Oh, yeah.
Once in a while. They haven't looked completely out of sorts. they're in the games. They're just not able to put it that one notch ahead.
As you said, and I figured we're pretty much wild cards, not a choice anymore, not a consideration.
Mhm.
But so we have to find those special moments. We've got to find those little things popping up like Jonny DeLuca doing real well. We
Yep.
got to look at the fun things with Chandler Simpson and certainly with Caballero. These are players and moments that make the game great.
Absolutely.
What was it? Okay, and then there was I feel for Taylor Wall every time, man. But to see him that one day, he had what? He had an RBI, he had a home run, and then a hit, and I can't remember if it was single or double. But I thought, yes, yes, one that he finally got one to go over the fence because it seemed like it was never going to happen.
Yep.
And I thought, good, Taylor. I mean, I don't know if I'd want to keep you or not, but I was so glad for you as a human being, Taylor, that you got that. It was necessary. But oh, here's some more fun facts though. Looking at the Phillies, I didn't realize that Kevin Cash's dad, Mike, had played for the Double-A team for the Phillies back in 1978. That was,
Oh,
yeah,
interesting. Was he a
yeah.
catcher as well, or what position did he play?
It What little I've got here doesn't tell me. I have to do some homework on it because I'm curious too.
Hmm.
It's been fun watching, as it's saying about interplay, I mean, interdivisional, whatever, and you're seeing players who had been on your team before. You see closers like Diego Castillo, or you see Jose Alvarado. It's
Yep.
it's hard to pull against them sometimes, but daggone it, guys, we got to win. We got to beat you. But
Hmm.
it is still fun to see those familiar faces, up there on the mound.
Yeah, I was looking today at the top pitchers for since the trade deadline, and there's three ex-Rays that were on there. One of them is pitching for the Phillies now, Christopher Sanchez. He's the one that we traded for Curtis Mead. There was Blake Snell in the top, I think, seven, and
Wow.
there was also Tobias Myers at 30th, who was the pitcher we traded for Junior Caminero.
Oh,
So, three X-rays in there in the top 30. But yeah, you're right. It's you go to some teams, you can tell that they definitely scouted the Rays heavily because they seem to have a glut of them on board.
well, I used to joke I had on the show before. Instead of a little where satire had somebody calling it's Mr. Eric Neander calling. He said, "Well, hang up," because it felt like whatever deal he worked, it wasn't necessarily going to be win-win back those days. It's been interesting again to see some of those players out there. Let's see, is Pepios pitching tomorrow? Who's pitching tonight? We're playing tonight, aren't we?
Yeah, Shane Baz. And he
Hmm.
he handed Nick Castellanos was the guy who got hit by the ball pitch yesterday by
Yeah.
Edwin Uceta, and he hit a home run off of Shane Baz tonight. So that was payback, and everybody was all over it once it happened. But yeah, that whole scenario with Uceta hitting the hitter, I think the Rays having that kind of an edge next year potentially. Let's say with him and Pete in the back of the line, the pen. I don't mind that. You know what? You want to show some pizzazz, and I'm not saying you go out there and injure players by any means, but you want to show some life in the fact that you care so much, that you're so pissed off that you're doing it a little bit of a Pedro Martinez sort of thing where you're just saying, I just don't have it tonight. I want out of this game. Get me out, and I just I'm all. It was more about him, I think, than it was about the Phillies. And I think it shows the fact that he's really uh wants to be an elite arm, and when he's not there, he's extremely frustrated.
Looking also at Taj. Taj, who had a spectacular month. What was it, July? And he's still doing well, don't get me wrong, but you see a person reach a pinnacle and trying to keep them up there the whole time. It's sometimes difficult. I have been really, I was really happy to see like Love Lady. I think he's done pretty well. Um, Drew coming back, that was encouraging. I mean, even at a limited amount of how he's doing that. But how do you feel about it? Do you think they'll keep him as a kind of middle inning guy, or what do you think they'll do in 2025?
They better keep him as a multi-inning reliever, because if they don't, they're jeopardizing his career,
Yeah.
and I really don't support that at all. There's no need to push him to be a starter. He's proven over and over and over again that despite them really lowering his pitch counts to sometimes, around 60 or 70, and he still got hurt. Now you're talking about a guy that, if he has one more surgery, that could be his career. It could be like a Johnny Venters scenario. So they definitely need to pick and choose their moments and to use them accordingly, not, abuse the arm. Like you want this guy to last. You don't want him to uh, phase out again. In the Rays, I know it's a heartless machine grinder, I guess, the way that they operate and the way that they use relievers. But I will say I was encouraged by the fact that they shut down Jeffrey Springs and they put him on a 15-day IL. I don't know if it was his call or their call. But I would much rather have him start the season fresh next year, now that we know what's going to happen this year,
Right.
than try to push the envelope, through the rest of the season. In terms of Tosh Bradley, I just find there's less run on his pitches, where he was, a little fresher at the early on in the season, and people have to be realistic. So, Taj Bradley, this is his first time exceeding 130 innings in the season, and right now, he's about 25 innings above what he's ever done before. So, to kind of pick on him for that, well, I shouldn't say that. I guess if you're including the minors, I think he's about even with what he did last year. But he's at the end of that. He's still a young pitcher. He doesn't really have his stocky man build on yet, right? He's about 23 years old. So if you're looking at him in that frame, right? When you look at Blake Snell, let's say back in the day when he was first coming up before he had the man body going along with it. It was the same kind of thing where, he was just building innings and it took until he was 25 before he really was able to amp it up and do a full season at 180. And at that point, the stuff took off and he was able to kind of dominate guys all the way through the season. And the next year it showed as well. So I would say give Taj a little bit more time and a little bit more leeway and not be so hard on him. I've seen a lot of it on X where people are just down on him big time. They're like, he's always going to give up the home runs. He's always going to do this. He's always going to do that. He's 23 years old. Like, give the guy a chance, at 24, 25. When he reaches 25, if he's still not showing the dominance that we know he's capable of based on the stuff, then by all means, like go ahead and just, berate him if that makes you feel better.
Yeah, you get those in the cash critics in a room, and we'll send them some sour cheese or whatever they can have
Yeah,
in there. But
exactly.
no, it's been great, man. I tell you what, it's been a good year. It's been a great year to watch the team, try to struggle through some tough times, and we still got some games ahead. I mean, still worth watching. Yes,
Absolutely. Yeah.
of course, may not say that in Oakland or Chicago White Sox land these days. Oh, by the way, that's who is it? Karen, who's that ball hawk? What's his name? Zach Hampel? Zach Hampel. I
Hmm.
used to, do you ever see his stuff on YouTube?
Uh,
You'd
maybe,
know if
maybe
you
not.
did. Don't.
Yeah.
He's out there. He runs and catches balls. He's there before the game and all that. He was at a White Sox game about a week ago, I guess, and it wound up being a midday makeup game for the White Sox. And not forget who they were playing, maybe the Cardinals. But he was there, and it was a half hour before the game, and he looked and he counted less than 100 people in the stands, man. And it's like, granted, it was a game that wasn't scheduled, and it's in the middle of a week, day. But wow, I hear more and more people like Nick Morowski talking about, is he going to keep his season tickets? Maybe not.
Mhm. Yeah.
I haven't looked on SeatGeek to see what they cost these days, but
Did they ever sort out the stadium issue for the White Sox?
I don't know. Honestly, I do not know.
Because there's a good case to say that you should move the White Sox,
Yeah.
like and just keep the Cubs as the Chicago team. But I know a lot of people are gonna hate the fact that I'm saying that.
Mm.
But when you're talking about covering the largest area possible, in certain cases it just doesn't make sense to have two teams in the same place and then have such huge gaps across certain parts of the U.S. where you're looking at it like, okay, well, this entire area belongs to the Rockies. Now I know the population isn't really massive in those areas sometimes, but it seems to me like there's like a good example would be like, could Utah support a team, right? Could Portland support a team? Nashville, Montreal. You have a lot of other areas where you would cover, first of all, a second language in Montreal,
Right.
plus all the networking that comes along with that. And then you also have other regions, I'm sure, where I'm not really well versed on in terms of population growth that are, maybe good potential areas. So it would be the same as if we looked at Florida, and let's say instead of Miami and Tampa, they had put a team in Orlando, and that was central, right? Then would it still have made sense to put any team in Tampa or in Miami? Maybe not. And I feel like it's the same with the Cubs, where they're trying to force a second team on that city when one of them has all of the glitz and glamour, I guess you could call it, with the ivy and the whole, take me out to the ball game and all the romanticism that goes along with it. And then you have the dark side, which is completely opposite of that, where it's doom and gloom and the worst owner in baseball potentially.
Yeah.
And you're just sitting there going, how does that work? How do you make that work? And especially with the Black Sox whole thing, like, yeah, it's time. Maybe it's time to move on.
Yeah.
I know they've touched on it. The Tampa was supposed to get the White Sox at some point, weren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a whole story about how that all went down to the last hour of midnight and things were changed. I have to dig that out. Well, we can talk about it sometime because it's really curious about the whole thing about how Tampa got a team and they didn't, and how long they had a stadium before they had a team. But yeah, there's there's plenty to be said about that, man. I'm thinking like you. I almost wonder why do we need expansion if you have a team that's no longer going to be in Oakland and one that won't be in Chicago? If you're going to move both those teams, do we do that and still find two other cities to expand to? I don't know.
So do you have like, I have a countdown for every year for Christmas, right? I have a little board and the girls and I update it and we say, okay, now there's 106 days left till Christmas, whatever it is. Do you have a countdown on right now for when the shovels are going in the ground for the new Rays Stadium?
oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm waiting for April's Fools of 2028. And then,
April Fools, I like it. That's awesome. Oh man.
no, I hope it's sooner than that. Actually, I would like to. Yeah, geez, my knees. That's a good question, man. It's kind of a sad one too, but yeah. Well, we'll see, brother. I'm maybe April Fools. We'll see if they do it on April Fools. So I don't know.
What was the date they proposed? Did they actually have one or have they announced one? I don't
Well,
know.
let me tell you something. When we're talking, yeah, yeah, anybody who starts would say, "Let me tell you something." Nothing good's going to come after that. First off, but all I can wonder is, Karen and I had the good fortune to go see the Rays a week ago. Somebody got us some tickets, and it was a great time. And we get there early. The rain was just coming down in sheets, and all I could think was, "Man, this is glad we got a roof. What's it going to be like in the new place?" Because still traffic can be a challenge if there's actually real excitement and real engagement for a number of people coming in. For those 2 days when the rain was coming down like sheets, it was very limited the number of people who were going to be able to attend. Matter of fact, let me tell you, it got so bad they actually had it where they said the rain was coming in through the doors at some points. It was coming in sideways. But so in a roundabout way, coming back to what you're saying is, I hope the hell they get the parking and the traffic figured out, but I don't know if we'll be there in 2028. I like to think they're going to be breaking ground in 2025, April Fool's Day. That's my goal. That's what I hope we're doing.
Yeah. Well, I just think that getting the process started and getting that money flowing to contractors and everything's, torn up to the point where you're pot committed at that point.
Yep.
I think that's a big, eye opener for everyone. Then all of a sudden, once you have that going, you can make all those surrounding investments in the area itself, right? And not have to worry about what the centerpiece is going to be and how everything else is going to fit around it. So that's why I say like there should be a countdown for the shovels going in the ground because it's such an economic impact for the region that I don't think people understand what spending a few $1 billion is going to do for that area.
Well, now that you shared that, especially about the family calendar for Christmas and
Huh?
countdowns, I love that, by the way. Yeah, I'm going to create something for that for the Rays and when we're actually going to have a stadium and when we're going to break ground. I mean, what is it? The little calendars where sometimes you little open up a window or something for each day, and there's something that's going to happen.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
I
Well,
like
I've got to build something like that for us, man. I got to put together a calendar where and be little mysteries. What's going to be there? We'll guess what's going to happen and find out what the truth's going to be.
Yandy Diaz next brawl will be on.
Oh, I love it. I
No,
love it.
no, no, we won't go there.
Are there any other nuggets you want to make sure we share with folks before we wrap it up today?
I would just say to keep an ear on the ground for the minors affiliates, and if you have time, just watch their playoff games. I watched the Charleston game, and there was Gary Gilhill getting some playoff action under his belt. Didn't look as great as Drew Dodd, who took over from him and threw outstanding. Was just poised under pressure, and 5 innings I think he went, and just take a look because those guys are getting a shot to shine in high pressure situations, and you find out a little bit more about their character and their ability to come up in big moments. And also you get to see some at bats under, high pressure, which, I think is important. So yeah, if you can on MILB TV, take a look. Or if you have MLB.com TV, MLB TV. I think they're free at that point. So, and the other thing is they're going to be announcing some rosters eventually. I think the Rays are still planning on sending players over to the Australian Baseball League now that the minor season is over. Usually they make the announcement within a couple of weeks of that finishing, and they head over to Australia to start play, usually sometime in late October, early November.
Wow.
So you'll probably get a handful to seven. I think seven is the most they've ever sent. I don't know if Curtis Mead will go back and play for Brisbane, but he might. Adelaide is who he's plays for. But he might consider it because of the kind of season he had overall. He might just say, you know what, I need to put in a little bit of extra time, and I think he still has a contract with them that allows him to do that. And then last thing I'll say is those who stay stateside also have the AFL, right? The Fall League. So some names that are being thrown around that would be interesting to see in that league would be Chandler Simpson and Trey Morgan, who I think would be awesome to see on that stage and in that kind of environment, and to see really how they stack up against some of the best prospects in the league.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm curious to see Curtis Mead continue to succeed. I haven't done enough viewing of what's going on in Australia with Adelaide or any of the other ones, but I would, if he goes back, I would certainly watch a little bit of that. And I want to point out too, one of my things, and that's working with the good folks at the All-American Women's Baseball Classic, and that's going to be coming up October 11th and 13th, and that's going to be in Durham. Okay, boys and girls, that's right where the Bulls are playing. You're going to be able to see some of the greatest women in the game. A lot of the women who played at the USA women's team in Canada, but you will see women from, from everywhere. You'll see women from Canada. My gosh! And if you missed the WBSC World Cup this year, you missed a lot. We'd be able to see some of those folks here. By the way, Matt, looking at the folks who did play in Canada playing as well as they did, there was one woman, and she took up like four of the top categories of performance. I cannot think of her name at the moment, but those are the kind of people you get to see play with four teams in a classic from October, I guess 11th through 13th. So it should be a lot of fun.
Wow. That's a great event. I wish I could go. I love that stadium in Durham. I think it's a great place, a great environment, and it's definitely great to see women's events being attended at really high levels in all sports. So I encourage everybody that can make it, absolutely go out there and cheer them on.
All righty. Well, thanks again, brother. That's Mr. Matt Germain, and that you can find him in his commentary at let's try again. It's at Matt, M-A-T _Germain, GERMAIN_. And that's on x.com, twitter.com, whatever you want to call it. Matt's there, and he always has some great insights to share. And so, Matt, thanks once again for letting us peek into your brain and get a bit of knowledge.
Dark place, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Oh, right. Well, thank you all once again for joining us today, and we look forward to talking with you again real soon. Remember, you can find Baseball Biz on Deck on baseballbizondeck.com. You can find it on iHeartRadio, Spotify. Oh, we're everywhere. So thank you again for joining us, and just remember, we're here. I don't know. But hey, Matt, thanks, brother.
I don't know.
I don't know.
That's how you should end every podcast. Hey, where are we? I don't know.
I think I threw that. I don't know. Yeah, go Rays. Raise up, boys and girls.
Cheers.
Special thanks to X-Take RUX for the music, Rocking Forward.